to Loch Lee and my father's imminent journey to death.
William Burns was an unbending man who could give no comfort or take any.
But Bess Peyton,
in the midst of death,
he was in love.
Passionately.
Recklessly.
Carnally.
Burns's father was sinking under of a life crushed by dutiful drudgery and litigation. The family gathered round to offer what comfort they could.
The comfort that Beth gave Rabbie bore fruit some time later.
Your father's no called in his grave and you disgrace his memory with an illegitimate bairn. Oh, you've exposed us all to the tumorous village gossips.
Well, they call me fornicator and tease my name in country cater. An old wives' tongue's a feckless mater to gie in fash. The more they talk, I'm kenned the better, and let them clash.
But a bastard when, Robert?
Welcome, my bonny, sweet wee dochter. Although you come here a wee unsought for, I know you're coming, I hae fought for both kirk and quair. Yet by my faith, you're no unwrought, for that I shall swear. The Lord grant that thou may I inherit thy mother's person, grace and merit, and thy poor worthless daddy's spirit without his failings. 'Twould please me mair to see thee heir it than stock at mailings. If thou would be what I would hae thee, and tak the counsel I shall gie thee, I'll nae rue my trouble with thee, the cost nor shame of it. But be a loving father to thee, and brag the name of it.
He was now Robert Burns of Murskill, head of the family and inheritor of his father's farm, silvered watch, debts, hardships.
Mere debts.
But he threw himself into the task of mastering the precepts of good husbandry, reading seed catalogues and agricultural tomes with a fervent intensity that hitherto he had reserved for his poetry.
My poetry? Try as I might to be the douce sober pillar of Mauchline society, I was haunted by voices that echoed through my inner self. Songs that breathed life and colour into my penurious existence. The voices of those that society was down upon. The discarded, disenfranchised singers of a song that would not be silenced. Pussy Nancy's! Of all the taverns in Mauchline, this is the one the Unca Gid had declared out of bounds. And Pussy Nancy turned the Unca Gid away from her doors. Nancy's customers were whores, sleight-of-hand rogues, tinkers, tailors, discharged soldiers, the very dross of polite society. In fact, I think I can see a few of them in here tonight. But the discerning poet's eye can see the glittering gold beneath the rags and the tatters. For the very poor are as free as the very rich.
The keenness of satire was, I am almost at a loss whether to say his forte or his foible. For though nature had endowed him with a portion of the most pointed excellence in that dangerous talent, he suffered it too often to be the vehicle of personal and sometimes unfounded animosities. The darts of ridicule were frequently directed as the caprice of the instant suggested, or as the altercations of parties and of persons happened to kindle the restlessness of his spirit into interest or aversion. This, however, was not invariably the case. His wit had always the start of his judgment, and would lead him to the indulgence of raillery uniformly acute, but often unaccompanied with the least desire to wound. The suppression of an arch and full-pointed bon mot from a dread of offending its object is a virtue only to be sought for in the calendar of saints. So Burns must not be too severely dealt with for being rather deficient in it. He paid for his mischievous wit as dearly as anyone could do. 'Twas no extravagant arithmetic to say of him, as was said of Yorick, that for every 10 jokes he got 100 enemies.
In Mauchline there dwells 6 proper young belles, the pride of the place and the neighbourhood all. Miss Miller is fine, Miss Markland divine. Miss Smith, she has wit, And Miss Betty is braw. There's beauty and fortune to get with Miss Morton, but armour's the jewel for me of them all.
He was in love,
Passionately.
recklessly, with matrimony in mind.
Have you no got things else to tip? You start hearing a family after the marriage, no for it.
We have a contract signed under the sight of God Almighty.
Well, we'll see what the lawyers make out of that. Jean, you will take yourself out of my sect and out of his life.
And she did. Jean's repudiation of Robert destroyed an image he had of himself as a dutiful family man like his father before him, tending the farm, tending his children, writing his verses by his own hearth, and signing a truce with the kirk.
There was more of his father than Robert than he could imagine. That love of life that his father had diverted into duty and self-sacrifice was in Robert as free and capricious as a hillside burn.
Jean was exiled 30 miles up the road to Paisley. But they could never exile her from my heart.
Robert signed Moskeel over to his brother Gilbert with the proviso that he should care for the family. He was now a stranger on his own landscape, driven away by the bleatings of mindless sheep such as Daddy Armour, Daddy Auld and Holy Willie Fisher. So, when he met Mary Campbell, the immortal Highland Mary, a kindred spirit whose whole race were to be driven from their land to make way for sheep of the four-legged variety, and
since I was a bachelor once more, what could be more natural?
He was in love,
Passionately.
recklessly.
Will you go to the Indies, my Mary, and leave old Scotia's shore? Will you go to the Indies, my Mary, across the Atlantic roar?
They decided to sail to the West Indies together to emigrate, the fate of many Scots before and since. A pregnant Mary went to Greenock to await Robert's arrival, contracted a fever and died.
leaving Burns with a burden of guilt that he could never lay down.
When to all the evils of misfortune this sting is added, blame thy foolish self. Or worse or far, for the pangs of keen remorse, the gnawing, torturing consciousness of guilt perhaps, where we've involved others, the young, the innocent who fondly loved us. Nay more, that very love their cause of ruin. Oh, burn in hell and all thy store of torments, there's no a keener lash. Flow gently, sweet Afton, among thy green braes. Flow gently, I'll sing thee a song in thy praise. My Mary's asleep by thy murmuring stream. Flow gently, sweet Afton, disturb not her dream.